There was a time when I met an elderly gentleman outside a temple in Vrindavan. He was sitting quietly on the steps, holding a small cloth bag. Curious, I sat beside him and asked, Uncle Ji, are you waiting for someone? He smiled softly and said, No, beta, I am waiting for peace. I worked all my life, earned, saved, struggled, but now, at this age, I still go to work because I am afraid of being useless. That sentence stayed with me. Afraid of being useless. And isn't that the silent story of so many people in old age today? They are not just struggling with finances, they are struggling with meaning. So today, let's reflect on something very deep. Financial struggle versus spiritual peace. How do we find contentment while still working in old age? 1. Survival versus meaning. There was a time when I met an elderly man sitting outside a small temple, holding a worn out cloth bag. His eyes were calm, yet there was a hidden heaviness. I asked him softly if he was waiting for someone. He smiled and said he was not waiting for anyone, but for peace. He had worked all his life, struggled endlessly, and now, even in old age, he continued working not because he loved it, but because he feared becoming useless. That one word, useless, reveals the silent pain of many elderly people today. Financial struggle is visible, but the deeper struggle is invisible. The struggle for meaning. When work becomes only a means of survival, life slowly loses its joy. A person wakes up not with inspiration, but with pressure. Every day becomes a cycle of earning and spending without emotional fulfillment. In such a condition, old age feels like an extension of struggle rather than rest. Yet, work itself is not the enemy. The problem arises when work is disconnected from purpose and becomes only a compulsion. In earlier years, work gives identity, energy, and direction. But in old age, if the same work continues only due to fear of survival, it slowly drains inner peace. Spiritual wisdom teaches us that human value is not defined by productivity alone. Even when a person earns less or slows down, their existence still carries dignity. The real challenge is not financial struggle alone, but emotional emptiness. When a person begins to feel invisible in society, even financial stability cannot heal the heart. True contentment begins when we understand that our worth is not dependent on constant output, but on the depth of our being and the peace we carry within ourselves each day we live, and inner acceptance always here. 2. Money versus contentment. Money can provide comfort, security, and basic stability in life, but it cannot provide lasting contentment or inner peace. Many people believe that financial success will automatically lead to happiness in old age, but real life often shows a different truth. I once met a retired businessman who had built a very successful company. He had everything that money could buy: a large house, expensive cars, and all the comforts of modern life. Yet, when I spoke to him, he admitted that he often felt a deep emptiness inside. He said that while he spent decades focusing on earning money, he forgot to invest time in relationships, inner growth, and emotional well being. Now, in his later years, he had financial stability but lacked emotional satisfaction. This is the silent gap that many people experience. Financial struggle is painful, but financial success without peace can also become a burden. True contentment does not come from accumulation, but from appreciation. When we begin to value simple moments such as sitting quietly, sharing a conversation, or reflecting on life, we realize that happiness is not always expensive. Spiritual understanding teaches us that money is a tool, not a destination. It should support life, not control it. In old age, especially, the focus slowly shifts from earning more to living meaningfully. If a person can sit peacefully with themselves without anxiety about money or future, that itself is a form of wealth. The real freedom is not just financial independence, but emotional independence. When the mind is free from constant worry, even simple living feels rich and complete, allowing a person to experience peace beyond material possessions. Ultimately, gratitude and acceptance transform ordinary life into a peaceful journey where every small moment becomes meaningful and deeply fulfilling in old age for inner peace always. 3. Identity and work. One of the deepest struggles in old age is the loss of identity when work changes or slows down. Many individuals spend decades defining themselves through their profession. A teacher sees herself as a teacher, a driver sees himself as a driver, and a businessman identifies entirely with his business. This identity becomes so strong that it starts to define self worth. However, when retirement arrives or physical strength declines, a silent crisis begins. People start asking, "Who am I if I am not working anymore?" I once met a 75-year-old gardener who had worked in the same park for over 40 years. He lovingly cared for every plant and tree. But one day, due to health issues, he had to reduce his work. He told me with tears in his eyes that he felt invisible without his daily routine. This emotional dependency on work creates suffering in old age. Spiritual wisdom gently reminds us that we are not our profession. Work is something we do, not something we are. When identity is tied only to external roles, aging becomes frightening. But when identity is rooted in the understanding of the self beyond roles, old age becomes peaceful. True identity is not lost with retirement or reduced income. It remains intact within the consciousness of being alive. When a person learns to detach self worth from productivity, a new kind of freedom emerges. Even simple actions like sitting quietly, observing nature, or spending time with family become meaningful again. The mind no longer measures value through achievement alone. Instead, it begins to appreciate existence itself. This shift from external identity to inner awareness is one of the most powerful transformations in aging, bringing dignity, calmness, and emotional stability in the later stages of life, allowing deep peace to naturally settle within us. 4. Shift from earning to peace. A powerful shift happens in old age when a person begins to move from a life of constant earning to a life of deeper awareness and inner peace. For many years, life revolves around goals, responsibilities, and financial security. But as time passes, there comes a natural invitation to slow down and reflect. I once met a retired railway employee in Pune who had struggled all his life to provide for his family. After retirement, he felt lost and restless. He said he did not know what to do with so much free time. Gradually, however, he started visiting a nearby temple every morning. He would sit quietly, feed birds, and help visitors find their way. Over time, his anxiety reduced and a calmness began to grow within him. He told me something very meaningful. Earlier, he used to earn money, but now he feels he is earning peace. This transformation is not about abandoning responsibility, but about redefining purpose. Spiritual growth in old age is about shifting focus from external accumulation to internal fulfillment. When the mind is constantly chasing results, peace becomes distant. But when attention turns inward, even simple moments become sacred. Sitting quietly, breathing deeply, or observing life around us can become sources of joy. This does not mean financial needs disappear, but the relationship with money changes. It no longer controls emotions or defines happiness. Instead, it becomes a supportive tool for living, not the center of life. True spiritual shift happens when a person can experience contentment without needing constant achievement. In that state, even ordinary life feels complete, and old age becomes a period of wisdom, gratitude, and deep inner harmony that no external struggle can disturb. Life then feels lighter, simpler, and filled with quiet joy beyond material concerns and lasting peace. 5. Inner peace beyond struggle. The ultimate understanding in the journey of aging is that peace does not depend on external circumstances but on inner acceptance. Many people spend their entire lives chasing financial stability, believing that once they achieve enough wealth, they will finally feel settled. However, life often reveals a different truth. Even after financial goals are met, worries continue and new desires replace old ones. I once met an elderly woman in Rajasthan who sold handmade lamps outside a small temple. She was around 80 years old, yet her face carried a remarkable calmness. When I asked her if she felt tired working at this age, she smiled and said that she did not work out of compulsion but out of joy. She enjoyed meeting people and felt alive in those small interactions. She said that she did not measure her life through money, but through moments of connection and gratitude. This is the essence of spiritual peace in old age. When a person releases the constant pressure of proving worth through productivity, a natural sense of freedom arises. Financial struggle may exist in some form, but inner peace reduces its emotional burden. Life becomes less about comparison and more about acceptance. The mind begins to rest in the present moment instead of worrying about the past or future. Even simple living becomes deeply fulfilling. Spiritual wisdom teaches that true wealth is not what we accumulate, but what we can experience without fear. In old age, this realization becomes even more powerful. When a person can sit quietly with themselves and feel content without external validation, they are able to find contentment and peace within themselves. They have discovered a level of peace that no financial struggle can take away, bringing deep fulfillment in every breath. This is the highest form of living with dignity and inner freedom for a soul always. 6. Working as a blessing, not a burden. Working in old age is not something to be looked down upon, nor is it something to be glorified blindly. The real question is not whether a person is working, but how and why they are working. I once met a widow in a small village in Rajasthan who used to make and sell clay lamps outside a temple. She was nearly 80 years old, her hands trembling slightly, her back bent with age. Yet her eyes carried a strange light, something that many young people today struggle to find. I asked her gently if she felt forced to work at this age. She smiled and said something unforgettable. She does not work because she must survive, but because she loves to meet people and share light with them. Every dia she makes, she feels she is spreading warmth in the world. That simple act gave her life meaning, not pressure. This is the difference between work as burden and work as blessing. In old age, work should ideally become lighter, more joyful, and more meaningful. It should not drain health or create fear, but support dignity and connection. Unfortunately, many people continue working only out of financial fear, which slowly turns life into stress rather than service. Spiritual understanding teaches that action itself is not the problem, attachment and fear are. If work brings joy, connection, and a sense of usefulness without destroying peace, it becomes sacred. But if it becomes a source of anxiety, it loses its balance. In old age, especially, work should feel like contribution, not compulsion. Even small activities, watering plants, guiding someone, teaching a child, can become deeply fulfilling. When work aligns with inner peace, old age transforms from survival mode into a graceful phase of life where dignity, simplicity, and emotional richness coexist beautifully and naturally every single day peacefully. 7. You are already enough. One of the deepest emotional wounds in old age is the feeling of becoming less important or no longer needed. Many people silently carry the belief that their value decreases when they stop earning as much, working as much, or contributing in the same way as before. This belief creates unnecessary suffering. I once met an elderly man in a small town who had been a respected clerk all his life. After retirement, he found himself struggling with silence. He told me that earlier people used to come to him for solutions, but now even his phone rarely rang. He felt forgotten by the world. But what he did not realize was that his value had not decreased, only his role had changed. Spiritual wisdom gently reminds us that worth is not tied to productivity or recognition. A tree does not lose its value in winter. When it stops bearing fruit, it remains a tree, complete in itself. Similarly, a human being does not lose dignity when work slows down or income reduces. The essence of life is not performance, but presence. When a person begins to understand this deeply, a quiet transformation happens inside. The need for external validation slowly reduces and self acceptance begins to grow. Even simple moments, breathing, sitting quietly, watching the sky, start to feel meaningful. Old age then becomes less about proving something and more about experiencing life as it is. The truth is, you were never defined by your job title, your salary, or your achievements. You were always more than that. You are already enough, even when you are not doing anything extraordinary. This realization brings immense relief to the heart. It removes pressure, reduces anxiety, and opens the door to inner peace that no financial struggle can destroy, allowing life to feel complete exactly as it is.